I'm going to preview the number 25 Baylor at number 9 TCU wins basketball game, which will be played on January 26th at 2 p.m. Central Time on espn2 slash espn plus slash Disney Plus. And I apologize for looking down because I cannot memorize all this stuff. And obviously, both of these teams are coming off a loss, but Baylor's was a non-con game against number 1 UCLA in a neutral site in New Jersey, where they lost 72 to 57. And really, they made it interesting at times. It just couldn't get over the hump. So Baylor 16-4 in overall, and TCU's 19-2 overall. The only only loss in conference, and both of these teams only have one conference loss. I mean 6-1 for Baylor, and TCU 7-1. And in fact, that last loss, the loss just came last game against Oklahoma State, 60-59. So, yeah, and it's a big game coming up. One, it's a rivalry. Two, this impacts Big 12 standings. Three, it could potentially impact the NCAA tournament seeding. Because I really do think if Baylor does win this game, they're going to move up in the seeding. And I know it's so early to talk about the bracketology stuff. But in order to give your spells for Baylor to give the best chance to be a 4 seed, or maybe even 3, as long as if they could start like a winning streak and just win out for most of the way, there's a shot to be a 3 seed or a 4 seed. There's still a shot. And obviously, if TCU would lose, their seeding would go worse. And if they win, they'll probably keep where they're at. Maybe they go down because of the loss to Oklahoma State. The only other loss that TCU had this year so far was against South Carolina, but South Carolina is a different beast. Let's just be clear, and they lost by that in that game by 33 points in a USLBM Coast to Coast Challenge. So, yeah. And I will make mention up front that Baylor wins basketball will not have Madison Bartley the rest of the year. And I did a separate video on that if you haven't watched that already. And I went over, like, what does this mean and everything. So, that's just making a note. And I know TCU is redshirting a player this year, Maddie Shear. So, no need to discuss her on all this. And it's due to a back injury. So, and when you look at the bigger games that TCU's played, they played only like 7 players, but honestly, I'm going to just go over more than that in case they do play more than normal. So, and Baylor's game was on a Monday, while TCU's game was on a Wednesday. So, there's a little bit of rest advantage, but Baylor got back late on Tuesday, to say the least. And it was even mentioned at the coaches show, and y'all can check that out. So, what are some players to keep an eye on for TCU? And they have 3 double-digit scorers that average 15 points per game or more, to say the least. Sedona Prince, number 13, 6'7" forward. That's a senior, 19.1 points per game. 0 for 4 on threes, 71.6% on free throws on 88 attempts, 9.1 rebounds per game, 2.3 assists per game, 1.5 turnovers per game, 1 steal per game, 3.5 blocks per game, 2.1 fouls per game. In a way, Baylor kind of has faced some players with that, so they're going at that side. So I think it's going to help them going to this game, especially against Lauren Betts. And I get Lauren Betts is a little bit different of a player when compared to Sedona Prince, at least on the offensive side of things. But you get the point on defense. Now, there's obviously a player that we all recognize, and that's Haley Van Lith, number 10, 5'9" guard. That's a senior. Yeah, she was at Louisville for a while, then went to LSU, transferred out, went to TCU instead to finish her career. 18.2 points per game, 31.1% on threes on 119 attempts, 83% on free throws on 94 attempts, 4.6 rebounds per game, 5.9 assists per game, 2.4 turnovers per game, 1.4 steals per game, 0.6 blocks per game, 1.8 fouls per game. And there's Madison Connor, number 3, 5'11" guard. That's a senior. 15.5 points per game. She is a shooter. 45.7% from the 3-point line on 173 attempts. 85.4% on on free throws on 48 attempts, 4.1 rebounds per game, 4.2 assists per game, 2.2 turnovers per game, 1 steal per game, 2.3 fouls per game. There's Taylor Begbie, number 1, 6'1" guard as a junior, 7.6 points per game. So there's a big drop off, as you could tell, from the points per game, from the double digit scores. 35.3% on threes on 85 attempts, and she hit some open threes early against Oklahoma State, and that's why TCU got that lead. So you can't allow that or help off of her necessarily. So that's going to be interesting. 43.5% on free throws on 23 attempts. 3 rebounds per game, 0.8 turnovers per game, 0.6 steals per game, 1.9 fouls per game. Donovan Hunter, number 4, 6-foot guard. That's a sophomore. She's from Oregon State. She was there last year. 5.5 points per game. 16 for 50 on threes. 71.4% on free throws on 7 attempts. 2.5 rebounds per game. 2.1 assists per game. 1.2 turnovers per game. 1.3 steals per game. 1.8 fouls per game. There's Aaliyah Robertson, number 23, 6'2" forward. That's a junior. 5.3 points per game, 45.7% on threes, but that's on 35 attempts. 78.3% on free throws on 23 attempts, 3 rebounds per game, 0.7 turnovers per game, 0.6 steals per game, 0.6 blocks per game, 1 foul per game. There's Agnes Emma Nopu, number 21, 5'11" guard. That's a senior, and I'll put this in the description below so y'all can see it on the stats. 5.1 points per game, 37.7% on threes on 61 attempts, 3 for 5 on free throws, 5.9 rebounds per game, 1.1 turnovers per game, 0.7 steals per game, 2.5 fouls per game, and really, that's the main ones for the most part here. Though I'm going to just mention like 3 more, just for the heck of it. And that's Deasia Merrill, number 3, 6'1" forward. That's a senior. 4.2 points per game, 69.2% on free throws on 13 attempts, 2.5 rebounds per game, 1.8 fouls per game. Nisha Godfrey, number 11, 5'9" guard. That's a junior for 2.1 points per game, 3 for 10 on threes, 8 for 10 on free throws, 0.7 turnovers per game, 0.8 fouls per game. And it's Una Jovanovic, number 5, 5'9" guard. That's a senior, 2.1 points per game, 3 for 20 on threes, 0.7 fouls per game. Yeah, no free throws attempted. And I'm going to just mention this across the board. Hopefully officiating is good in this game, because at times there were some questionable calls against UCLA for the Baylor side of things, against Aaronette Vonleh. A few questionables. I mean, she was not even really given a chance. But regardless of the officiating, you got to make plays to win. Point straight up. Point blank. I'm just saying that. You got to make adjustments on the fly quicker than you did last game. And of course, you got to make adjustments on the fly regardless. Like, not just from first half, second half, but quarter to quarter, during those quarters, especially early on. And you cannot get yourself down in a big hole like you did last game against TCU. I mean, not against TCU, but UCLA. But you get the whole point. You can't start slow. I know Oklahoma State got away with it. They were down 15. But that game was at home. This is on the road. And whatever you did right last game, you got to bring it into this game. Whatever you do wrong last game, you got to correct. You can't block your own shot offensively. What does that mean exactly? As in, like, hesitate. And try to do something that's not your normal shot. That's a Nikki Collins term, and she did mention what does that mean in the press conference. So I'll put that in the description below too, so y'all could watch in all this. Another thing across the board, you can't be intimidated by the TCU crowd, and hopefully there'll be some Baylor contingent in the crowd too. But you got to not try to take them out of the game as much as possible. And don't be intimidated by the TCU players too, especially Haley Van Lith and Sedona Prince. It's not to say any other particulars, but those are the big 2 names. Don't Bennett and Connor, yeah. But you get the point. And I expect TCU to play ticked off going this game. one, they're coming off of a loss, and two, Baylor's beat them pretty long time now when you look at the series history. So, and this is probably the best TCU team in that time period coming up. And you got to want this game more than TCU does. And I know TCU wants it really bad. You got to out hustle them, make this smaller plays and key plays to win. So, obviously you got to limit your foul trouble. You got to do that better, especially Aaronette Vonleh. She had 5 fouls in 10 minutes last game. You can't have that in this game. You just can't. So, now, offensively, you need to try to take away the strengths for TCU out of this game as much as possible. And you need to try to make Haley Van Lith and Madison Carter ineffective. That's what Oklahoma State did in terms of percentages when you look at it. And Sonoma Prince, she's more of a perimeter-oriented player than a down low, but she could score down low. So you need to try to make things a little bit tougher and try to make it so tough for them to throw the ball inside when they do that, or throw the ball, period. You got to limit the second chance points. You got to limit the points and pay. Of course, you got to contain the shooters and don't give them any free shots, and don't let them live at the free throw line either. And you got to get in those passing lanes and get some steals. Of course, some blocks and charges would really help. In this type of game, you got to limit the points out turnovers, points in the paint, and fast break points as well, and the second chance points. And another thing across the board, you got to have your bench step up and while trying to limit their bench too at times. But you get the whole point in all this. And in order to get some easy shots, you got to force some turnovers. Because sometimes your best offense comes from your defense. And that's why offensively, you got to score as many points out turnovers as last time. As much as possible. And I know Baylor got beat by UCLA by 15, but look at the amount of points out turnovers that Baylor did in that game. That would really help in this type of game. And you got to shoot the ball better from the field and the 3-point line and the free throw line. I'm just making it point blank, saying it straight up here. Because you can't shoot like you did last game and expect to win. You just can't. And you can't block your own shot and all this. And at least you got some experience going against size at the center spot. So obviously you need to learn from last game what you did wrong. You got to get some good looks, good ball movement. Don't have illegal screens. Got to limit your turnovers, especially the live ball ones. And I do not want an illegal screen at all in all this. You got to get some second chance points. And if you can't go straight up because of size in the way, bring it back out and run some offense. And obviously, if it didn't hit the rim, you got to try to get the ball. Once you get the ball, you try to, and there's still size in the way, try to dribble it out real quick and then shoot it. Then pass it and let them shoot it. You got to make your free throws in this game. That is needed. And I know you did that in the second half, but you got to do that in the first half. That's just telling the truth. Right here. Obviously, you need to get some points in the paint somehow, but it doesn't. You got to make Sedona Prince move on defense. And you don't want to have her have a field day on defense like you kind of did with Lauren Betts with a near triple-double. You got to get some, points, rebounds, and blocks, by the way. You got to get some second chance points somehow. You got to get some points in the paint somehow. Like, get some good shots from the 3-point line and make your free throws. You got to be good in late game situations, both offensively and defensively. And really, the pressure's on TCU because I tell you what, if they lose this game, they're definitely out of the top 15 or definitely out of the top 13, I would dare to say. because they did lose to Oklahoma State. That was unranked. And you got to have a sense of urgency. I know TCU's going to have a sense of urgency because they do not want to lose back-to-back games. And you can't let one game beat you twice. So you got to put that last game behind you and move forward. And you had some time to rest and prep for this game. So that is helpful. I mean, and obviously they're playing a little bit different defense than last time Baylor played them. They played mostly zone last year. Now that, man, no, they could go back to zone here. They could. And you got to adjust to it. I mean, that's just telling the truth in all this. And I'm going to just make mention up front that Erin Volney needs to have a way better game than she did last time out. She has to be better. She has to. And don't get fouled so quick. Of course, you want to get them in foul trouble. You do. I mean, that's just the way it is in all this. And you got to have Bella. Hopefully, Bella Frontline shoots the ball better from the field, though she may 4 out of 6 on free throws, but still. Darren LePage Buggs hopefully has a better shooting game. 3 for 10 shooting, 8 points. And she did get 10 rebounds. Hopefully Jada Walker and Sarah Andrews have better games. Games too. And it would be helpful to have Kayla Nelms step up off the bench as a backup big. And hopefully Kai Abraham does her role too. I mean, off the bench of Nita and Yaya Felder and Aaliyah Matharu too. So, yeah. I'm just going to make mention that up front now. So, and hopefully Aaliyah Matharu shoots the ball better. And hopefully she could find a way to get that performance like she did against Arizona State out again offensively. But if nothing else, defense, rebounding, of course, offense. I would like some offense, of course. And Yaya Felder definitely needs to step up. And she was the only double-digit scorer last game. So, and this would really help for NCAA tournament resume for both of these teams, but in particular for Baylor, because they need if they want to be a 4 seed or something, which I get it's a long time from now to think about. I'm going to go over like more bracketology stuff like mid-February. But in order to think about being that type of position, to be a host, you got to win this type of game. And you can't block your own shot offensively, so I'm just saying, and going forward, at least you got to try to find a way to get a winning streak here and try to take and get your fans involved that are there at the game, involved as much as possible. And you got to be resilient with the runs, which I like what we did against UCLA last game, but you cannot be down 17-2. Like in this game right here, you just can't. You need to find a way to start faster. And you got to finish strong, too. I mean, it's not, and obviously in late game situations, you got to be good at those offensively and defensively in this game in case it comes down to it. So, let's go to work. So, anyways, if you like this content, hit the like and subscribe button. See you guys later on the road. Sam Scars goes up to my goal. Is 1,000 ways some money out this course like a convo really helps YouTube algorithm. Some more people see it. Sharing the video does help as well. Some more people could watch. And if you're watching and not subscribe, hit subscribe button for the notification bell as well. And really, after this game for Baylor, the next ranked opponent is like West Virginia, and that's on February 11th. No offense to overlooking UCF on the road, Cincinnati at home, and on the road to Houston and BYU at home. But they should really win those games. Should, but will they? And obviously, I know TCU side of things, they want to find a way to keep themselves right there for the conference, try to win the conference here. And it's kind of the thing that Baylor needs to do in this type of game right here. And literally, the next game for TCU is against Iowa State on the road a week later. So let them sit and dwelling of back-to-back losses here, and let's give them back-to-back losses for the first time all year long. And then it's like Kansas State for them on the road, which no they go lead. Then there's Texas Tech at home. They really should win that game. Iowa State's disappointed. I get it, but they're desperate for a good win. And BYU should be a win as well for TCU. So that's just next 5 games for both these teams. So we'll see what happens here. And try to speed TCU up at times to create some turnovers in this game right here. It will really help, especially the live ball ones, and make them call timeout quicker. And let's go out there and show what we got. Let's go.